Join me today as we wire the front porch light onto our dollhouse and do some prep work for the upcoming wallpaper. Stay tuned and see how easy this is to do. Alright, so currently I have the dollhouse laying on its back on my table with the edge of the roof hanging off. I'll try to put a picture of this position of it on the blog post just so you can get a laugh at it because it looks pretty funny. So we're going to install the front porch light today. Where's the camera? Find the camera. So I have decided I want to put it right about in here. I'm going to go an inch away from the frame today, and I looked up online what's the average, and the average height that's suggested for a front porch light is between 65 and 67 inches from the porch floor, which translates to about 5.5 inches for our 1/12 scale. So I'm going to put the door in there. I've got my ruler, which I got to angle just right to get it to go in. So I'm going to go in, and if I go an inch past the door, I am safely away from the tape wire on the inside. The tape wire on the inside ends about 1/2 inch in from the door. In fact, I'm going to go 1 1/4 inches just to be sure. That's easy enough to do. And I need to turn my ruler. Hold on. I got my ruler in the wrong direction. There we go. I don't want to do any math. I need to do it this way. All right, so I'm going to go 1 1/4 inches over from the door just to be sure I'm over far enough that I don't interfere with the tape wire. And I'm going to mark at 5.5 inches. And I'm going to put a little dot with my Sharpie. I'm using a Sharpie because that, if it gets wet at any point, it won't run and get ink all over the front of my dollhouse. Now I need to get out my little drill, so I forgot to get that. I'll be right back. Alright, hopefully I am now prepared. So I've got my little drill. This is the same tool that we were using to put the brads into the wiring. And I am going to drill a hole through. I'm really hoping this is big enough and I don't have to go retrieve a bigger drill bit, because I'm not sure I know where my bigger one is. So I hope you're enjoying this series so far. If you are, be sure and hit that like button down on the below the video. That really helps. And if you spread the word about the channel, maybe we can get some more people subscribed. That would help too. I think I'm going to turn the camera off and finish drilling this hole because it's going to take a while. Alright, now my front wall has a hole in it that is large enough to put our cord from our light. Now, if you've not dealt with this before, you might be kind of surprised. There's a plug-in on the end of this, and you might be saying, how's that going to go through that little hole? Well, we're not going to use this little plug. What we're going to do is we are going to cut it off. I don't use those. Now I did try this hole out with a chunk of wire earlier, and in all honesty my drill bit was not big enough, so I just used a small nail and poked it, kind of pounded it through and made that work. So now we need to feed this wire in, and it's going to probably not want to go in. Door out of my way. This would be easier if I had the door sitting up, but then I would have to lay it down anyway because I'm going to glue this light fixture. Alright, now what you might notice, let me see if I can get you guys a little bit over. Try not to let me turn the camera off and get you. All right, so we've got our wire in there. Now, on the back of the light fixture is some sticky, but I don't like to use this. Well, I'm going to use it, but I'm going to put glue on here too, because I simply don't trust that this is going to stay long term. I don't want to someday come to my dollhouse and find that my light fixture is at an odd angle. So I've got my wood glue open, and I will need to clean up any spillage. And just applying some wood glue here. And I'm using my hand to pull the, whoops, you guys can't see at all. I'm pulling the wire tight from the inside. Now I'm going to get my ruler. I want to make sure that this is straight with the opening so that we don't have our porch light crooked. And it is just a little bit crooked. There we go. All right, so now I'm going to let this sit overnight so that this glue is plenty set up, and then tomorrow for me, next segment in the video for you, the dollhouse will be turned right side up and we will wire this to our tape wire run. All right, I thought I'd just turn the camera on just long enough to show you how the porch light looks on the porch in the spot I chose for it. I'm kind of half wishing I would have ordered 2 of those porch lights and put one on each side, but whatever. So let me get the dollhouse turned around and we can start the wiring of that light. All right, I've got you on the floor inside the dollhouse. This is the wire that we fed in through that hole yesterday. It's had pretty much a full 24 hours for that glue to set up and dry. Wanted to make sure it was completely set before I started messing around on the inside of the dollhouse. And I've also trimmed off part of that wire that we fed into the dollhouse wall, so it's not quite as long as it was. I'm going to show you on this piece that I cut off a little bit about what we're going to do. So you'll notice it has this wire is made up of 2 sets of wires that are kind of bundled. And I like to use my thumbnail, and you kind of pull your thumbnail across it multiple times, and you'll pull off that plastic covering. Let's see if I can move my light, maybe so you can see better. There's those wires that are inside of there. And just like we have to keep these 2 tape wires separate in our wiring, these 2 wires need to be kept separate. One set, and it doesn't matter which one, but one set of these will get wired to the copper, and one set will get wired to the purple or blue or whatever we're calling that color. So I like to do it this way. You can use a knife, but I find when I use a knife, a lot of times those wires are really fragile and they're really thin. As you can see, I'll try to have a photo on the blog of these too. Those are super, super fragile, and when I use a knife or a tool to trim this plastic sleeve, a lot of times I end up cutting that wire. So I am going to probably have to move the camera out of the way, get this wire split just like I did here, and split up to a point where I can wire it. I'm going to leave the bare tails really long so that I can work with it. And then I'll bring you back and show you the next step. Let's try this again. I've started this portion of the video about 3 times already. So a recap of what you didn't see. I have tested the wiring system and made sure everything's working, and I also have made sure that my dollhouse is now unplugged from its power source. Very important when you start messing around with your wiring that you don't have it plugged in. Now, reaching around this camera is proving to be very, very difficult. So we'll see how this works. So I have chosen this spot for the first portion of my wiring. Oh, also I peeled the insulation off the wires, and I've made them the length I need them. And now let's see, pick up one of these. Now you could do this with eyelets, you can do it with the grommets / eyelets, whatever you want to call them. You could use the brads. I prefer to use these over brads. They're just easier in the MDF. If I was doing this on the thin plywood dollhouse, I would probably do it with brads. All right, now I'm pushing that not all the way in. And now I'm wrapping the part of the wire that I've peeled the top off of. And I'm pushing this in all the way tight. And now, off to the side, I have some of that cloth or paper first aid tape. The stuff you buy I actually rated my first aid kit this morning. And I'm going to take a piece of this, and I want to put tape over that part I just did. I'm having to trim this because this is a really big piece of tape. I don't need this much wire, but I really hesitate to cut it off yet. So I am going to temporarily do this, and I may go back and cut that shorter before I go on to anything else. Now, this wire is now going to go into the copper one. Let's see if I can do this with you guys sitting there. All right, I'm going to drill a hole. Yeah, working around a camera is a really interesting way to do this. This will go a lot easier for you when you're not, because you probably won't be working around a video camera. Come on. All right. Now, there. Once again. This, and you'll notice I had the wires pulled way apart from each other. I didn't want to take any chances on getting any wires from this bundle of wires mixed up with the wires on that bundle. That's why I'm taping them with separate pieces of tape. And I apologize for being in you guys' way with my hands, but I can't figure out a different way to do this. All right, now hopefully I've got that wrapped sufficiently. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put a piece of tape over it, and then we are going to test it. And the testing is going to be in two parts, because first I'm going to plug the dollhouse in and make sure I haven't done anything to short out my wiring. All right, we're plugged in. Tester. Let's make sure that, where are you? You can't quite see that. And the tester's working. Let's make sure it's working past where I also tape. Yes. All right, I'm going to turn the camera off, and I'm going to take you around the front, and we'll see if that light is working. And we have light on the front porch light. Yay, it worked the first time. So let's move back inside, and I'll show you what we are going to do to make this a little more permanent. All right, I'm trying to get the camera set so it can see the whole thing. So I'm going to make sure I have no wires sticking out, and I do right here. So I'm actually going to, let's unplug first. I don't want to do anything till I unplug. Now, the wiring's unplugged. So I'm going to pull this tape off. I am going to, and I'll probably do most of this off camera, but I'm going to kind of talk you through what I'm going to do. I am going to make sure this is pounded in as tight as it'll go, and then I'm going to trim these wires off, and I'm going to put a fresh piece of this same first aid tape over this portion, and then I'm going to, when that's all taped and secured, I'll untape this. I'll make sure this is pushed all the way in. I'll trim the wires there, and I'll put a fresh piece of tape there, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what I've done. I went through, I trimmed everything, I made sure everything was as flush as possible, and I am going to take an additional piece of this same tape, and I'll have a link in the blog post to the product I'm talking about. I don't have the label on it right now because this came out of a first aid kit, but I'm going to go over my wire. This is going to help not only to keep it more secure, but it's going to help kind of disguise it when I go to do my wallpapering. Now, while I've got you here, I'm going to aim you up just a little bit, and I'm going to talk you through what I'm going to do. Each of these spots here, those are going to poke through my wallpaper if I don't do something with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through with this. I'm having trouble finding the end of my tape. I'm going to cut a short piece of this tape, and I am going to tape over all of those. It will just add a little extra cover there. And then after I get all these taped off camera, I'm going to take my same white primer that I used on the walls, and I'm going to just run a coat of primer paint over all this tape wire. All right, so I hope you've enjoyed today's video. We got the front porch light wired in, and we did some prep work for the wallpapering, which will come in our next couple of videos. If you liked the video, please push that like button. If you haven't subscribed, I'd love to have you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can be informed when I put up a new video. If you have friends that do dollhouse miniatures, share the channel link with them. Hopefully they'll like us too. And I will talk to you next time. Bye.